Welcome to Mikab Model College online tutorial. We hope at the end of this lesson, you will have acquired the expected learning outcome. Sit down and listen attentively as we introduce your subject teacher.
Welcome back to another mathematics class. I am Adobazi Abdullahi, and this minute I'm going to take you geometry. And if you are talking about geometry, geometry is defined as an aspect of mathematics which deals with the study of properties of different shapes. And if you are talking about, let's take it again, geometry is defined as an aspect of mathematics which deals with the study of properties of different shapes. And if you are talking about these shapes, we have one, plane shapes, two, solid shapes. And in the case of plane shapes, it is defined as a geometrical form that can be represented wholly on a surface. We can as well define it as a geometrical form such that the straight line that joined any 2 points on it wholly lies on the surface. And if you are talking about these plane shapes, we have different examples. And one of the examples is triangle. A triangle has three sides. We have the vertex at one side. This is another vertex. This is another vertex of the triangle. And together we call them vertices. The second example is square. And if you are talking about the square, we have all the four sides being equal. That is why you are seeing all this mark at the four edges of the square. And let me remind you one thing about the square. All the included angles at each point of this square, they are all 90, summing up to be 360. Next example that we are going to look at on that is a plane shapes, rectangle and circle. And in the case of rectangle, the opposite sides of the rectangle are equal. If you look at the single line here and another single line at the other side, it shows that the two of them are equal. And if you look at this double line at this point, another double line at this point, it shows that the two of them, they are also equal. That is why the opposite side of this rectangle are equal. And the similarity between this rectangle and a square is that both the square and the rectangle have the included angle to be 90 degrees each, and the summation of all will give us 360. The other example is this circle. And if you look at the circle, a circle is having its common point named as the center. The common point named as the center, and the distance from that center to any circumference, any of these circumference of the circle, is referred to as a radius. The distance of any of that common point, which is the center, to any part of the circumference is referred to as radius. That is one of the unique things about this circle. And the next example we shall look at is trapezium. Trapezium, if you are talking about trapezium, this is representing the height of a trapezium. This one represents the longest side, while this one is the shorter side of the trapezium. And all these examples that we've mentioned so far, from 1 to 5, they can be represented wholly on a surface. We still have more examples on this plane sheet, which include the kite, the parallelogram, the rhombus, and the likes. And if you are talking about the parallelograms, they are more of the square and the rectangle. So, if you are to give examples of these plane shapes, you are going to mention triangle, square, a rectangle, a circle, a trapezium, rhombus, kites, parallelograms, and the likes. And the next one we shall look at is solid shapes. And if you are talking about solid shape, this is a shape bounded by surface, which may not wholly be represented on a plane surface. I take it again. Solid shape. This is a shape bounded by surfaces, which may not wholly be represented on a plane surface. And the example of this are 1, cube. And if you are talking about cube is just like a box having all its sides equal. If you are talking about this cube, this side is having a mark, this is another a mark, and this is a mark. It shows that all the sides, both the height, the length, and the breadth, they are all equal. That is a cube. A cube is an example of a solid shape. And the next example we shall look at is cuboid. And if you are talking about cuboid, the cuboid is also like a box, but the sides, the length, the breadth, and the height, they are not the same at all. They are different. The length is bigger compared to the breadth, and the breadth may be bigger or smaller compared to the height. It does not necessarily mean that the height must be longer than the breadth, or the breadth must be longer than the height. That is in the case of a cuboid. The next example is a cylinder. And a cylinder is having a circular surface. This is the circular surface of the cylinder, and is having a height above the ground. Like I've said in the plane sheet, we said a circle is having a common point called the center, and any line drawn from that center to touch any part of the circumference is referred to as a radius. Likewise, this cylinder, the cylinder is having a radius, and the radius of it together with the height we defined the cylinder. The radius and the height of it are the parameters that will define the cylinder. The fourth example of this solid shape is a cone. And if you are talking about the cone, it has an apex. And the distance of this apex from the common point of this circular part of the cone is called the height. Of course, we've defined this circle as having a line drawing from this common point to touch any part of the circle, named the radius. And if you are talking about this cone, it's having another parameter called the slant height. And with the look of things, cone is controlled by three parameters. The first one, the slant height. The second one, the height itself. The third one is the radius. These are the three parameters that control the cone. The next example we shall look at is a pyramid, the square base pyramid. It means that all the sides of the base must be equal. And this one is also having an apex, which its distance from the center of this base shape is referred to as the height. And the other example of this solid shape are the sphere and the ellipse. Thanks for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel.